absolutely. I mean, you go to Turin and you get a point, you're probably very happy with it. Sebastian Kehl spoke post-match about exactly that. He accidentally said after a loss, what feels like a loss.
Yeah.
And then he corrected himself really quickly. And then he said, okay, well, they told us ahead of time we're getting a draw in Turin, we would have happily taken that because this Juventus team is really good. There's some really good players, and Vlahovic, a little bit fallen from grace over the last few years, comes off the bench. That attacking three of Louis Openda, Jonathan David, and Yildiz will, I think a lot of Bayern Munich fans bemoan the fact that he was part of their academy and got away from them. And a lot of national team fans, German national team fans, probably also unhappy he's chosen Turkey, the country of his parents, rather than the country of his birth, right? He's a phenomenal player. He's absolutely star player, one of the best wingers in Italian football. And the goal just underlines this, right? And then you look at the rest of this team, like Thuram and Koopmeiners in midfield, Kelly, Brenner, Kalulu in defense. These are all top players. I remember when half of Europe was chasing Bremer, the Brazilian defender, right? And Juve got him. I mean, this is a really good team. We kind of forget that they dominated Italian football for so many years, and they're kind of on their way back. And Dortmund not only went toe-to-toe to them, but probably should have won this game, right? I agree with you on balance that the draw is probably deserved, but when you're up 4-2, you just got to kill the game. And I think that is maybe, and I think that's something that Kovac is probably going to get, trying to, that kind of attitude, he's trying to get that attitude out of this team. Rather than going to the right corner of like Adeyemi is going on attack and trying to get a fifth goal for Dortmund, right? You just have to be smart. You have to kill this game, and the funny thing too is, for me, there was this really great scene after Yildiz made it 1-1. You saw Adeyemi and Yildiz talking to each other at the center circle. And they were both laughing. And then, like, literally moments later, Adeyemi gives the assist to Nemcha to make it 2-1. And I'm actually kind of wondering, I'm like, I think Adeyemi just told Yildiz that they're going to go back the other way and make it 2-1. And I think Yildiz and Adeyemi are friends from the Bayern Munich academy. I think they were back in the day, they were both in the same academy. So they kind of were joking back and forward about something. But I thought it was really telling that, literally moments later, Dortmund made it 2-1, only for that result then to go to 2-2. There were so many little crazy details in this game that on their own would fulfill the entire storybook of a normal match report, right? Like, also this conflict between Bensebaini and Serhou Guirassy over the penalty that Bensebaini then put away, right? Again, like, that's got completely lost because of everything else that happened in this match, right?
Which again is a totally Dortmund thing to happen,
Yeah.
And to be fair to Bensebaini, like he was super cool. And, as much as I do like Guirassy, I think he's a great, great player for Dortmund. I wouldn't say he's the most eloquent finisher of the ball, so I can understand why. Usually I hate when the striker doesn't take penalties, and last season I hated that Emre Can took penalties for Dortmund, but in this case I'm not overly fussed about Guirassy not taking the penalties. So
he wanted his goal, right? There was so many goals on the board, and he wanted a goal. I wanted him to get a goal because my bed is starting to look really bad. But also this attacking three. I know the subscriber you mean, and he's absolutely wrong about Maxi Bayer. I think that attacking three looks phenomenal. It's everything that we hoped it would be when Nuri Sahin became head coach last year, right? And he just couldn't figure it out. And Niko Kovac, and I've said this before, he had exactly this front three when he had his first spell, when he had that really successful spell with Eintracht Frankfurt. Guirassy, Bayer, and Adeyemi are Haller, Jovic, and Rebic. Like, you guys can pick which one is which. I mean, Haller and Guirassy are the obvious one. You guys can pick who is Jovic and who is Rebic in this trifectum. But it's the same idea. It's to have three powerful center forwards on the field that have three very different abilities But, and I'm repeating myself and I sound like a broken record, going back to all the way to June when we did this podcast on PSG, what is the number one thing that you need to do as an attacking team in the year 2025? Is you have to create situations that are difficult to impossible to solve for your opponent's defensive line. And you do this by having as many different attacking players on the field that create as many different problems as possible. And this is what this does. And Kovac did this all the way back with Frankfurt. He didn't do a great job with it at Bayern Munich, probably because it was all centered around one number 9, right? And it hasn't worked in Monaco or in Wolfsburg. I think he was in Wolfsburg, right?
Yeah.
But it works here because
he did okay in Monaco, to be fair, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah, he did. But, I think it works. His tactics work really well. That 3-4-3 with a non-defined midfield with these 3 attackers. And there is other players on the bench that can come on and create even more problems, right? Bellingham came on, Brandt came on. Sooner or later, we're going to see Chukwuemeka also making an impact. But you see what Kovac is trying to do. And I joked at halftime, Dortmund will win this game 1-0, Kovac ball all the way. I think we're going to see those results soon as well. Dortmund are not going to make these defensive errors again. Benzebaini next time, when the ball comes towards the box and it's 4-2, he's going to put that ball into the third rank of a stadium rather than trying to play it out, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I thought, yeah, you're right. I mean, just quickly on that, one of the things I think was really bizarre in this game was that I think 2 of the worst players for Dortmund were Benzebaini and Ryerson, who I think have both improved dramatically under Kovac. Ryerson was good before Kovac arrived, but this year in 2025, both have been really solid, so I was quite surprised at that. But no, you're absolutely right. I think when you look at that front 3 and the way that they play, and the way that, we talked about how, see, even when he doesn't score, he's still so instrumental because of what he does off the ball. We talked about Bayer, the way that he kind of plays off the ball and on the ball. He's still a very good player on the ball, of course he is. But even Adeyemi, who is probably seen as a kind of, the exciting, attacking dribbler of the team, he's still a player who, as we saw under previous Dortmund head coaches, will absolutely do a shift at fullback or wingback if it's asked of him. He will track back. He'll make the tackles. He'll follow his runners. He's happy putting those shifts in. And I think now when you see the way that Dortmund play this season, we appreciate why Gittins and Kovac maybe didn't see eye to eye last season. We talked about it all season and we knew it. We mentioned it at the time, but you look at the way that Dortmund have been set up and you see this vision that Kovac is kind of realising at Dortmund, and you realise, okay, this is why someone like Gittins just would not have worked at Dortmund this season, because he's just not the type of player who's going to put that shift in. And yeah, I think it's worked really well. I think Dortmund have made themselves much harder to beat. I think they're a far better team tactically speaking. And it'll be really interesting to see how they do going forward, Manu, because they've got 2 decent games in the Bundesliga coming up. They've got Wolfsburg and then Mainz, but then they've got a run of 4 games that I think are really interesting. They've got Athletic Bilbao at home in the Champions League, which I think is a must-win for them. And they've got Copenhagen away in the Champions League, which I also think is a must-win. But in between that is Leipzig and Bayern in the Bundesliga, which I think will be really tough.
I'll be at the Bayern game, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how they do over those 4 games, because those will be the kind of games that will kind of define whether they get out of that group, but also define how they do in the Bundesliga this season. So they've got a real big test coming up on the horizon, and they've got Frankfurt and the Pokal a few weeks after that as well. So the games will be coming thick and fast. And, I think Dortmund, but I think Kovac has got a lot. He's probably learned a lot from this game against Juventus. I think his team have as well. But yeah, I've been impressed with him. I was joking when they were, 4-2 up, I think. It's another thing, by the way, Juventus never led in this game, which I think is an interesting fact. It just popped back into my head there much at the time. But, when they were like 2 goals up, I said in the chat, I said Dortmund would win the league this year. What you guys didn't realise is that I meant the Champions League. So they've still got plenty of room to go into. But no, yeah, I think in terms of German teams in the Champions League this week, I think Dortmund should be proud of what they got in Turin, and I think Bayern should be proud of how they beat that Chelsea team.